like, have you like kind of discovered why do people find excuses? I mean, like people come to this country, they want to, like people who've been to North America, the culture is to become better, to grow. People land here, come here, make it here, and then they don't move forward. For them, it's good enough. It's just how the masses operate.
But no, listen, comfort is a disease. I've said this 100 times in podcasts and my books and everything else. Mm-hmm. Comfort is the prison that makes you adopt, like basically the lack of aspiration. So the more comfortable you are, the less you seek further aspiration. So it's like, imagine this, someone gets a Mercedes, they get very satisfied with that.
Right.
So what happens is instead of saying, I could have a Ferrari, they justify who needs a Ferrari, right? So here's the difference in the mentality is to believe you can means to engage in practice. So a person who believes they can will go and test drive that Ferrari to know what it's about and won't be afraid of enjoying it. Someone who has just gotten a Mercedes, who's afraid of facing the resistance that life poses to those who want to go great places, will simply say, who needs a Ferrari? They've never experienced a Ferrari. They've never enjoyed it. They've never driven it. They've never been part of it.
Right.
But they will automatically cut it out of their life as a means of not running into resistance. You see, anytime you want to be successful, anytime you want to grow, what happens is the world basically you create this energy out of your body that basically goes, I'm a prisoner here and I want to move here. Like I want to move. And what occurs is when you move through, like basically when you're trying to move through time and space at a pace faster than time takes its place. So you're like, I want to be ahead of time, not behind it. You're running into what I call rubber band resistance, which is basically your body is pushing the time-space continuum so fast that it's like a rubber band. The more you stretch it, what happens if you let it go? It goes back to its formal state until you stretch it enough where it cracks, right? It has to crack. And so even the harder you stretch it, the harder it gets to crack it, right? Meaning like the less motion you make, which is why when you want to find, usually you start a new business, you have a lot of energy and you start and you go forward. And then all of a sudden, once you're forward enough, the resistance start kicking in and things start to break down. Things start to get harder. It's harder to make your first 10,000 than to make your first 100,000.
Right.
Then much easier to make your 100,000 than your first million. Right. So the more you go up, the more the resistance is like, no, where are you going? Like, this isn't where you're supposed to go. And so you have two choices. Either you persevere and push through and break free by just being consistent and driving through despite the hard time, or you do what most people do, which is you come up with a reason why that resistance is very evil and bad for you, and it's damaging to your health, it's hurting your family, and blah, 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 blah. And you go back to a state of comfort where you basically let the rubber band push you back, where you go, I'm just pushing enough to make enough money. I'm just pushing enough to be happy. And I'm just pushing enough to basically be content. And then you start going into these other things like we need to show gratitude. We need to be humble, which humbleness is a disease on its own. You know, so all of these things are, again, this idea that, hey, I'm not good enough to go there, so I'm justifying my position here. You know, it's like, imagine you're on a ship and you basically go on this journey and you go, we've been at this journey 5 years on the water. It's boring. I'm hurt. I'm hungry. You finally find an island. It's not the island you wanted, but you jump off. There's food. There's partying. There's women. You're like, I'm so happy here. And then you're like, what looks better? Do I get on that ship again? Maybe wander another 5 years and maybe I'll never get there. Or do I just settle for this okay but good life here, which is a lot better than the ship, right? And that's the path. That's the problem with evolution, is that the more you undertake becoming greater, the more you start paying attention to the world around you, and the more you realize how fucked it is and how little your chances are to get successful in it. Yeah. And what happens is it comes down to self-belief. You get to a place where you basically get stuck and you go, okay, like I have to believe that I can find that place.